This is a production of the Boy Scouts of America.
Welcome to Youth Protection Training. This program is designed for volunteer leaders and parents of boys in a Cub Scout or Boy Scout program. Now, child abuse is a significant social problem, harming not only the victims and their families, but also causing negative impacts on youth-serving organizations and our communities. This training program focuses on BSA-developed youth protection guidelines, the rules we follow to eliminate or reduce the opportunities for abuse to occur within a scouting program. These rules take into account the kinds of activities included in scouting and how these activities could present an opportunity for abuse. After completing the training, you should be able to demonstrate understanding of the BSA Youth Protection Guidelines by going online and correctly answering the questions to a short quiz. After passing the quiz, you'll receive a certificate of completion via email, evidence that you have completed BSA Youth Protection training. Youth protection is an important part of planning for every scouting activity. Now, we're dropping in on a meeting between the Chartered Organization representative, a new PAC committee member, and a brand new Troop Scoutmaster as they review plans for their summer programs.
Guys, I saw your activity plans, and they look really good, especially for two people who are new to the program. I mean, you've got some great ideas in there. I think the kids are going to love it all.
We're pretty excited ourselves.
Oh, we're going to have such a good time.
Absolutely. You know, the one thing we need to talk about, though, before we get too much further along is youth protection. Are you both familiar with it?
Somewhat. I had to go through the whole criminal background check thing, and so did my other leaders.
Yeah, right. I mean, all my Cub Scout day camp leaders had to do it too.
Yeah, well, background checks can only identify people who've been caught. So, obviously, for someone who's never been caught and has no record, background checks don't really offer us much protection.
Well, yeah, but what are we supposed to do? Like profiling?
I would guess you can't tell a child abuser by how they look.
Right. In most cases, they're actually ordinary-looking people, so we can't look for abusers. What we can look for are people who don't follow the rules, the rule breakers.
What rules are we talking about here?
The BSA has developed a set of youth protection guidelines that make it difficult for abusers to harm kids when those rules are followed while kids are involved in scouting activities.
How can we get a copy of these rules?
Well, all the guidelines are in the Guide to Safe Scouting, and you can actually get it at a couple of different places. Local scout shops carry it, or you can go online to scouting.org and just click on the Scouting Safety tab.
So is that all we need to do? We get a guide to safe scouting and read over and follow the youth protection guidelines, and that's it? We're good to go?
Pretty much, but you'll need to take the BSA's youth protection training. You know, it'd probably be good for me to run through the guidelines with both of you to make sure your program plans follow the guidelines.
Actually, that is a good idea because I might have some questions. You know that word guidelines? It means sometimes things are open to interpretation.
Exactly. So a key idea is adequate supervision. No surprise there, right?
Well, no, but I mean, what does that mean? That we're over 18 or that we've passed the criminal background check?
Actually, adequate supervision means at least 2 adults, with at least one of them over 21, are there for all scouting trips and outings, and at least one of them has to be a registered member of the BSA. And in order to get a tour permit, one of them must be youth protection trained.
So that means like my wife and brother couldn't take a troop to a gaming arcade or a Habitat for Humanity build site or whatever.
Right. It's called Two Deep Leadership, and it helps protect adults as well as kids on trips and outings.
Wait, how so?
Well, on the youth protection side, if one adult tries something inappropriate with a scout, then the other adult can step in, stop it, and be a witness. On the flip side, having 2 adults means you're better protected against false accusations of abuse, since again, you have an adult witness. But in this case, they would help refute a false charge.
And that's why they call it the Two Deep Leadership?
Yeah, exactly. But remember, 2 Deep Leadership is a minimum standard. You know, depending on the activity and the number of members, you might need more adult leaders.
You know, I love that. It is so reassuring. I just feel like in today's world that the BSA has such a strong commitment to our kids' safety.
Absolutely. Listen, you're really well protected, and so are the kids, as long as you follow the 2 Deep Leadership guidelines. By avoiding any one-on-one contact between a leader and a scout, you really reduce the opportunities for abuse to occur. And that's another really important guideline. You know, there should be no one-on-one contact between an adult leader and a scout that's not in full view of other adults or youths.
Well, that sounds like a good idea in theory, but I can think of a lot of cases where you might end up alone with a scout.
Like what?
Well, let's say you finished a troop meeting and you're waiting for the last parent to show up and pick up their son, and your other leader couldn't stay until all the kids were gone.
Good question. I'd say it really comes down to planning. If you know your other leader has to leave early, then Maybe recruit one of the other parents picking up their son to wait with you until that last boy is gone. But do it in advance so it's not an ambush and you don't get caught with no alternative but to be alone with that last boy.
Well, yeah, but sometimes that's not always possible.
Or even schedule parents to be there just to wait with you. Sometimes people are looking for ways to help out without becoming a leader, and this is a great way for them to get involved.
Okay, what if one of my den leaders, they're dropping off the boys, but one of the den leaders lives way off, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be the last person dropped off?
Sure, but, we also have to follow the guidelines. As long as there's another member present, you're meeting the no one-on-one contact guidelines. So, for example, you could have your registered Cub Scout son riding along with you, and that would meet the guideline.
What about when you have to speak to a scout alone? Like maybe there's a discipline problem or something.
Yeah, it's okay to speak to the scout alone, but you have to remain visible to the other leaders. So you just move out of earshot and make sure that you can still be seen.
What about merit badge counselors? Aren't they alone with scouts all the time?
Well, they shouldn't be. The no one-on-one contact rule applies to merit badge sessions as well. In this case, the guidelines allow for a buddy system, where more than one scout can meet with a counselor at a time. Or you could have another adult around, the counselor's spouse, or another leader, or the parent of a scout.
That seems so over the top, having two adults around for a merit badge counseling session.
Really? Why?
Well, merit badge counselors are registered and have passed a criminal background check and are devoting their time to sharing their expertise with the scout to help them advance. It just seems so unlikely that they'd be abusers.
Yeah, it does seem unlikely. And then again, what better way for an abuser to gain access to a kid than to invite him into his home?
Oh, come on. I mean, all you have to do is look at the headlines to see you have no idea what people are really like. I mean, everybody these days has some secret.
Yeah, that's true, but let's not get overly dramatic here. The truth is the vast majority of adults involved in scouting are good people like yourselves doing it for the right reasons. Guys, we've been talking about adult behavior so far, but let's face it, sometimes problems can come from kids, either through bullying or even sex abuse.
How do we deal with that?
Well, adult leaders are supposed to monitor their scouts and step in whenever necessary to stop inappropriate behavior. At that point, you should tell the boys' parents and get their help in dealing with it.
Yeah, but what if you talk to the parents and that doesn't even help?
If you've got serious or repetitive incidents going on, then the unit committee should review things. And if the problems continue, the scout can be asked to leave the unit or his membership can be revoked. Now, if that happens, the council should be notified immediately.
Sounds like we're becoming judge and jury here.
Look, I understand what you're saying, but the thinking is that kind of behavior puts an unreasonable burden on the other kids and on the unit leadership, and it really can't be ignored. So the unit should also tell the scout executive about any incidents involving a physical injury or allegations of sexual misconduct by a youth member with another youth member.
I so agree with that. I mean, the unit shouldn't have to put up with bad behavior. But what else do the guidelines say?
Well, privacy is certainly an issue. Obviously with outdoor activities and camping, there's a lot of clothing changes, showering, the sort of thing where boys deserve privacy. So in those cases, adult leaders should only step in if there's a safety or health problem.
What about stopping horseplay, like snapping towels and stuff like that? Isn't that an invasion of privacy?
Kids are going to be kids. I think you have to use your own judgment about a situation where, it's just kids having a good time versus a health or safety issue, or even just their feelings being hurt. In cases like that, you need to step in and you need to stop the behavior.
Wait, step in? How?
Just take control, like you would at home. Privacy takes second place to safety. Since we're trying to create a positive experience, there are going to be times when you have to intervene and make sure everyone's feeling okay.
But where is that line between horseplay that's harmless or between bullying and hazing?
I'd say this. If you see any behavior that is questionable to you, then step in and stop it. Just be the responsible adult and err on the side of caution. Beyond that, the guidelines prohibit bullying or physical hazing and initiations.
Well, this is certainly eye-opening, but what else?
Well, there's some things we can just kind of review here since they're all pretty much self-explanatory. Here. Separate facilities should be maintained when camping, meaning no boy is permitted to sleep in the tent of an adult other than his own parent or guardian. When separate shower facilities are not available, specified separate times for use by male and female, as well as separate times for youth and adults should be scheduled and posted. Proper attire for all activities is required. For example, skinny dipping is not an appropriate part of scouting. No secret organizations are permitted.
That's a good one. I know some people think the Order of the Arrow is a secret organization in scouting, which just isn't true.
Yeah, right. And every part of the scouting program is open to observation from parents and leaders. Okay, so last three things. First, constructive discipline. What they mean by that is discipline used in scouting should reflect scouting values, and that corporal punishment is never permitted. Okay? All right, item 2. Adult leaders should monitor and guide the leadership techniques used by youth leaders, making sure BSA policies are followed. Basically, that means that den chiefs or other youth leaders can help lead a program, but they should never handle discipline issues. Okay? And finally, activities with elements of risk, notably the high adventure stuff, should always be done with proper preparation, equipment, clothing, supervision, and safety measures.
Wait a minute, what does that last one have to do with youth protection?
Youth protection is more than preventing sexual abuse. Sometimes peer pressure or even bullying is used to get a member to do something that he may not want to do or even be capable of handling.
You know what, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it feels like we get so involved with the sexual predator stuff, it feels like we forget about the other ways the kids need protection.
Really, everything I've heard so far makes sense, and it's straightforward and easy to follow.
It is. But we do need to talk about the hard part, which is what do you do when a guideline has been violated or you have reason to believe a child has been abused?
All right, but I want to get something to drink first.
Me too.
Sure.
Okay, let's take a break here for a bit of discussion amongst yourselves. Watch the following staged camping scenario. Then stop the video and take a few minutes to talk about what you should do in a situation like the one you're about to see. Assume you're the person in charge of the outing. When you're finished, restart the video and we'll cover what to do when a guideline is violated. Remember the guidelines regarding too deep leadership and no one-on-one contact.
Just right down here. Thing is, when you go, I saw a den of baby raccoons over there. You want to come check it out? Yeah, you go. Put up your knife.
Now we see a second violation of the guidelines by the same person.
Go right through this trail over here.
What would you do in this situation? Stop the video and take just a few minutes to discuss